Everyone thinks Vecna is an unkillable nightmare from the upside down, but here is every character that can actually defeat him without a sweat. We'll start with those who can stand their ground to those who would absolutely destroy Vecna. Trust me, the reasons will surprise you. First is Dustin Henderson. Yeah, I know you might think this is totally crazy, but we can't deny the chances and possibilities that are there. Because here's the thing, Vecna isn't going down with brute force alone, and that's where Dustin comes in. Think about it, every single major victory against the upside down monsters has come from someone figuring out the pattern, the weakness, the one thing nobody else saw coming. And who's always been that person? Dustin. Now, Dustin isn't throwing punches or blasting Vecna with superpowers, but that's exactly why he might be the one to actually kill him. Because Vecna's defeat won't come from strength, it'll come from knowledge and strategy. Dustin lives and breathes Dungeons and Dragons, and here's where it gets absolutely insane. In D&D, there's this creature called a lich, and Vecna is literally based on a lich from the game. And the crazy part is, you can't just kill a lich by fighting it. You have to destroy something called a phylactery, which is basically an object where the lich hides their soul, and without destroying that phylactery, the lich just keeps coming back over and over again. So here's the mind-blowing theory, what if Vecna has a phylactery in the upside down? And what if it's that creepy grandfather clock that keeps appearing everywhere? Dustin would be the only one smart enough to connect those dots because he understands the lore better than anyone. And remember how Max survived because of her favorite song? That wasn't random. Someone had to figure out that music was the key, and that kind of esoteric, obscure weakness is exactly Dustin's specialty. He's not the muscle, he's the mastermind. And when it comes to Vecna, there's probably some hidden ancient rule or weakness that nobody would ever think of except for the kid who spent his entire life studying this stuff. And once Dustin figures out what that weakness is, once he identifies Vecna's phylactery or whatever impossible condition needs to be met, that's when the real kill becomes possible. And that's why Dustin Henderson might actually be the one who ends Vecna for good. Next up is Erica Sinclair, and okay, hear me out, because this might sound even crazier than Dustin, but the evidence is actually stacking up in the most insane way possible, and it all starts with that Dungeons & Dragons game in Season 4. Remember when Erica stepped in for Lucas at the Hellfire Club and her character Lady Applejack had to face off against Vecna in the campaign, and she rolled a critical hit and won the entire game? Now here's what makes this absolutely wild. Every single time the show has used a D&D campaign to mirror what's happening in the real world, it's been foreshadowing. And Vecna was literally the villain in that game before he showed up as the actual big bad in Hawkins. So when Erica rolled that natural 20 and defeated Vecna in the game, that wasn't just a fun moment. That was the writers telling us something huge is coming. And some fans think Lady Applejack delivering the final blow in the campaign is a direct preview of Erica delivering the final blow in real life. Maybe stabbing Vecna in the back when everyone thinks the fight is lost and nobody sees it coming. But it gets even better, because let's talk about how Vecna actually kills people. He doesn't just murder you physically, he crawls into your mind and uses your trauma against you. Your guilt, your regrets, your darkest memories, and he breaks you mentally before he finishes you off, and that's his entire strategy, right? Except here's the problem for Vecna. What happens when you target someone who literally has zero trauma to exploit? And that's Erica Sinclair, because think about her personality for a second. She is unapologetically confident, brutally honest, and completely shameless about everything she's ever done. And fans have pointed out that she probably looks back at every single moment of her life and goes, yeah, I did that, and what? And that kind of energy means Vecna has nothing to work with. No crushing guilt, no painful secrets, no deep-seated trauma that he can twist into a weapon. And if Vecna can't get into your head, then his whole power becomes useless against you, which makes Erica potentially immune to the one thing that makes him unstoppable. And let's not forget how her role keeps escalating every single season. In Season 3, she was the only person small enough to crawl through those air ducts at Starcourt Mall, and she became essential to stopping the Russian gate. And then in Season 4, she wasn't just tagging along anymore, she was a full member of the team. She was the lookout at the Creel house, she set up the light bright to communicate between dimensions, and when Jason's friend tried to stop her, she knocked him out with a flashlight and literally yelled, "Crit hit," which is exactly what she did in the D&D game. So the show keeps building her up from a sassy sidekick to someone who's actively in the fight and winning. Now here's where it all comes together. Eleven couldn't finish Vecna, Nancy couldn't finish Vecna, and the finale made it pretty clear that raw power alone isn't enough, so the final kill is probably going to come from something unexpected, something clever, something nobody saw coming, and Erica is the perfect candidate for that because she's smart enough to execute a tricky plan, and she's physically there on the ground ready to strike. Now let's talk about Will Byers, and honestly this one hits different because Will isn't just another character who could kill Vecna. He's the one person who's been connected to all of this since the very beginning, and that connection might be exactly what ends it. Will was patient zero, he was the first victim, the first one taken into the Upside Down, and ever since then he's had this weird psychic link to the whole hive mind situation. And we saw it again in Season 4 when Vecna came back and Will could feel him, that chill on the back of his neck telling him something horrible was near. And that's not normal, that's a direct line into the enemy's brain. Mike called Will the heart of the party, and that's not just some sweet friendship moment. That's important because if Will is the heart, then he's the emotional core and the one who understands what they're fighting better than anyone else. And here's where the Dungeons & Dragons lore gets absolutely insane again. In the actual game, Vecna had this lieutenant named Cass the Bloody-Handed who was his most trusted servant until Cass betrayed him and nearly killed him. Will could become the show's version of Cass because, think about it, Will has been inside the hive mind, he's been possessed by the Mind Flayer, and he still has that connection, which means he might be able to work from the inside. Vecna thinks he controls everything. He thinks the hive mind is his ultimate weapon, and then Will, who's been linked to it this whole time, uses that connection against him and delivers a fatal blow from within. The one place Vecna would never expect. And it would be poetic justice because the first victim, the kid who suffered the most and started this entire nightmare, would be the one to end it and close the loop. And that's why Will Byers isn't just a candidate to kill Vecna, he might be the most narratively perfect choice the show could make because his story began with Vecna, and it only makes sense that his story would end him too. Moving on is Max Mayfield. And this one is personal because Max has already been to hell and back with Vecna. She literally died in his hands and came back, and now she's lying in a coma somewhere between life and death. And if she wakes up, you better believe she's got the biggest score to settle out of anyone. Max already beat Vecna once using music and happy memories as her shield, and that moment proved something huge. That emotional strength and joy can actually fight back against his curse. And if anyone knows how to navigate Vecna's mind and survive, it's Max, because she's already been there and made it out. Here's what makes her so dangerous to Vecna if she comes back. She understands his psychic space better than almost anyone. She knows how it feels, how it works, and what it takes to resist him. And that experience makes her the perfect weapon in a completely unexpected way, because what if Max wakes up and still has access to that mental connection? And what if she uses it against him? Imagine Max deliberately stepping back into Vecna's mindscape at bait as the ultimate decoy, and Vecna would absolutely take that bait because he thinks he already broke her. He thinks she's his unfinished business, and he'd be obsessed with finishing what he started. So while Vecna is completely focused on crushing Max in the mind space, while he's pouring all his attention and power into breaking her one final time, that's when the rest of the team strikes, and that's when 11 or Will or whoever's on the physical side lands the killing blow because Max held him in place mentally and Vecna never saw it coming. Her entire role would be drawing his focus, keeping him distracted, and using her mental endurance as the trap that gets him killed. And after everything she's been through, after all the pain Vecna put her through, Max being the reason he finally dies would be the most perfect act of defiance possible, and it would prove that hope and strength can beat despair every single time, and that's why Max Mayfield could absolutely be the key to ending Vecna forever. And finally, we have to talk about 11 because, let's be real, she's the most obvious choice, and sometimes the obvious choice is obvious for a reason. 11 and Vecna aren't just enemies, they're mirrors of each other. They're both products of the same lab, both given the same powers, and both capable of reshaping reality with their minds. And the difference is that 11 chose love and connection, while Henry Creel chose hatred and destruction. And that clash is what the entire show has been building towards since the beginning. Elle already beat Vecna once. She's the one who banished him to the Upside Down in the first place, back when he was still 1, and she was just a kid. And now she carries this crushing guilt because she knows that every single death, every monster, every nightmare that's come out of the Upside Down is technically because she sent him there, and that guilt is fuel. That's what's driving her to finish this and make it right. The final battle between 001 and 011 isn't just a fight, it's the closing of a circle that started in that lab decades ago, and it's the ultimate showdown between two people who were given the same power but chose completely different paths. Here's what makes 11 so dangerous now. She's learned that love is her real power source, her connection to Mike and Max and Hopper, and everyone she cares about is what makes her stronger than Vecna could ever be, because Vecna is fueled by hatred and isolation and bitterness, and that's a finite well, but love, hope, and the desire to protect people, that's endless, and that's why 11 might actually be strong enough this time to finish what she started. Vecna's entire philosophy is that humanity deserves to be erased, that connection makes you weak. But 11 is living proof that he's wrong, because her connections are exactly what make her unstoppable, and when they finally face off in that last battle, it's going to come down to whether love can overpower hate, and if anyone can prove that it can, it's 11. And that's why she's not just a candidate to kill Vecna, she might be the only one who is always destined to end him. If you think there's anyone else out there with the potential to kill Vecna, drop it in the comments because I want to hear your theories, and if you enjoyed this breakdown, don't forget to like and subscribe for more amazing videos.